judges are ready. The fighters are ready. The boxing world is ready.
The fight starts now!
Let's go.
How do you like it? On the show.
So aggressive, so focused.
It all comes down to this. Still the undisputed champion of the world. DAZN Weekend Preview.
Welcome to the weekend preview presented by AutoZone. And Sergio, you are headed to Cancun, Mexico. Big weekend for you down in Cancun. I will not be there to chaperone, to babysit. So I'm hoping that
Thank goodness.
I'm hoping you make it to fight night is what I was going to say. But if you do, there's a good one, man. A rematch between William Zepeda and Tevin Farmer. We called that first fight over in Saudi Arabia. A surprisingly, at least to me, competitive fight that Zepeda wound up winning by split decision. Now, Farmer is getting his chance to run it back. What do you make of this rematch? Does Tevin Farmer have a chance to pull off an upset once again?
No, not this time around. You know, the first time around, I was very adamant about Farmer's chances against Zepeda. As a matter of fact, I didn't pick him to win, but I picked him to go the distance and give Zepeda a handful, and that's exactly what happened. They didn't give him a decision, and I don't think they give him the decision the second time around. I don't even think it gets to a decision, because that's what happens when you're familiar with a boxer. You already know how you already picked up his accuracy and his timing. You know how he moves. The thing about Farmer is we're used to seeing him on the back foot the entire time. He actually was flat-footed. He wanted the respect of Zepeda. He knew he couldn't just back up and move around the ring and let Zepeda continue on the front foot, you know, pinning him down on the ropes. So I think Farmer did the exact same thing. He got his respect early. He got that knockdown. He got that momentum. Everything went his way, except the judges didn't see it and give him the decision. Second time around is going to be different. I think he's going to have a lot of issues and an even meaner, stronger, more determined, and more familiarized opponent in front of him. And Zepeda, man, it's going to be tough for him to even cross the finish line this time around.
Yeah, let me say first that I'm glad that Tevin Farmer is getting this rematch. A lot of times when you have a B-side or an opponent, a name guy that you're just bringing in, if they make the fight close and if it's competitive, very rarely, 99% of the time, they don't get the rematch. Usually a fighter like Zepeda will move on. And we know that Zepeda is right up there at the top of the rankings for every belt at 135 pounds. So I was pleasantly surprised that Golden Boy made this rematch, because not only was it a competitive fight, it was a pretty good fight. You know, Farmer knocked Zepeda down in the fourth round and made it competitive over that 10. But I agree with you. I think Zepeda is going to be more prepared for this Farmer style this time around. And I also think the fact that it's going to be 12 rounds is a variable in all this. When I watched back that first fight, Zepeda had some problems early on, got knocked down that fourth round. But, you know, for 4 of the last 5 rounds, I thought of that fight, he took over. His volume took over. His accuracy took over. You know, he was the better fighter in the second half. And you give William Zepeda a couple of extra rounds, we know what his engine looks like. It is a tireless engine. It's going to go forever. So I think that's going to benefit him. I do think that Farmer makes it to the final bell, but I think it's a wider decision this time around than a win for Zepeda. And you said something interesting about kind of the adjustments that Zepeda is going to make. Why do you think when you face a fighter that's tricky like Farmer, the second time around, someone like Zepeda is going to be more prepared for?
Well, aside from confidence and already being in there with them, already engaging the distance, you already felt the power. You already are not going to be surprised by the speed. The fact that you're facing another left-hander, you know, left-handers are not accustomed to facing other left-handers. They're accustomed to facing, you know, an orthodox fighter. That's their advantage. So all these things was like a perfect storm for Zepeda to have an off night, which he did. And Farmer had a great night. Let's not take anything away from Tevin Farmer. He was confident from the beginning to the middle to the end. He just didn't get the decision. But Farmer's been in a lot of competitive fights where either he doesn't get the decision or even or the judges had it way too close for his comfort. Even in his wins, in his past wins, they're close fights. Even that one draw, his losses. So he's one of these guys that he doesn't control the action like a boxer with no power does. Think Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker didn't have power, but he had the respect of power punchers because he always popped that jab in their face, and he was an excellent body puncher. I think that's two things that he needs to take from the southpaw page. Tevin Farmer needs to get more active with that jab. Pop Zepeda with that jab. It could be to the chest or the belly. It can be to his head, but you got to alternate that jab and move around the entire ring. That's one thing. And two, body shots, man. Zepeda was digging down to Farmer's body, and I got to give credit to Farmer. His toughness was, man, I applaud his toughness, but we expect that from Philly fighters because he was getting hit with some massive body shots, man. I was watching that fight earlier this morning. He never got hurt to the body once, Farmer, so he has the toughness, but he's going to have to return that favor, just like Whitaker did with Chavez. He got the respect of the tough Mexican to the body. That's how Frankie Randall had success against a tough Mexican in Chavez, digging him down to the body and uppercuts. That's what Farmer needs to do the second time around.
Yeah, and look, there are a lot of reasons maybe Zepeda struggled in that fight. It was over in Saudi Arabia. Maybe he had some issues adjusting to that fight. I mean, Farmer had the same type of adjustment as well. But I do think that his volume is going to be a problem for Farmer once again. He threw more than 100 punches more than Tevin Farmer. He landed more than 50 punches more than Tevin Farmer. Like it's just going to be a problem that I don't think Tevin Farmer is equipped to solve. And at 34 years old, I don't know if he's going to be effective in the championship rounds of a 12-round fight. I mean, I think Zepeda is comfortable with southpaws. A lot of his recent opponents have been southpaws. Like Jojo Diaz was a southpaw. Maxie Hughes was a southpaw. So he knows what he's getting into against a southpaw fighter. I just think maybe he took Farmer, like, he didn't take him as seriously. I mean, I remember being in the fighter meeting. I'm like, do you think you're going to knock this guy out in third or fourth round? And to his team's credit, Panda Nahar was like, no, man, this guy's going to be tricky. We know what we're getting into with Tevin Farmer. But I think maybe this time around, there's a little more respect for the game, perhaps, of Tevin Farmer.
All right, Chris Mannix, you're finally bringing up southpaws and their past opponents. Yes, William Zepeda's faced southpaws, and he's done really well with southpaws. And on the flip side, Tevin Farmer has lost to southpaws. He hasn't looked good against southpaws. I mean, Jojo Diaz is a southpaw. Early in his career, he faced southpaws, didn't look good against them, against Zepeda. So on the flip side of that, Farmer hasn't looked good. So I think the second time around is going to favor the more familiar guy that's accustomed to facing other left-handers, and that's Zepeda. I mean, look, the fact that he throws so many punches, it's only a matter of time till one of those lands. It's not like he's just an active buzzsaw. He's a power punching active southpaw that throws the right shots. When that jab is popping and those uppercuts are flowing, it's hard to hide against them. Guys submit with fighters like Zepeda because they don't know where to hide anymore. Their toughness ran out. Their speed and power has kind of just wore off, the later this fight goes. And then it was just they have to rely on their toughness and their chin. But come the second time around, I don't think Tevin Farmer's experience is going to be enough. I think the wear and tear from that long career that he's had, he has been stopped before. And the fact that he's been hurt by so many southpaws and been in there with so many southpaws is bound to catch up to him. I think it catches up to him this weekend.
All right. Well, that is happening this weekend. Last weekend, though, Sergio, we had a major loss in the boxing community. George Foreman, the two-time heavyweight champion, U.S. Olympic gold medalist back in 1968. He passed away at the age of 76. Boxing fans know Foreman for the Rumble in the Jungle, the incredible knockout in the mid-1990s of Michael Moore. Casual fans know Foreman because of the grill, right? Like he had the George Foreman grill that sold over 100 million units, and I had a couple of them back in my college days. I didn't have too many interactions with Foreman. We spoke at a couple of events. He participated in a couple of stories that I wrote for SI over the years. Did you ever interact with Big George, and what was it like?
Well, first of all, I didn't go to college or have the benefit to be able to afford a George Foreman grill
Oh,
like
hold on, hold
like
on,
you.
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on.
And second,
This is not a high end piece of equipment, Sergio. I think my George Foreman grill back in the day cost $20.
yeah,
I'm
but
pretty sure it was in that ballpark.
yeah, but I'm pretty sure they weren't selling them at Walmart. You have to have a computer and be able to afford a computer to order it online
Of course,
where it
they were
can come
selling them at
in.
Walmart. What are you talking about?
I didn't have a George Foreman grill. My mom had a plancha. She had a cazuela, and she would make real food. And I learned how to cook, unlike you, Mr. Cup of Noodles. Um, what I remember from George Foreman, I got to meet the man. The biggest hand I've ever shook, one of those. The biggest hand, strong, big man, intimidating. But once he has that big smile to match those big hands, man, that's when he's warming and welcoming and a great storyteller. We had a barbecue with him, man. Me and a couple of the fighters when we were taping the Contender, and we asked him every question you can think of, man. And he was just so warm and, like I said, a great storyteller, and he loved talking. That's another thing about someone like George Foreman. Everyone thinks that he was successful because of his grill. Yeah, that made him rich. But the reason he was a spokesman and so good at it is because he was relatable and likable, and he was charismatic. That's hard to do, man. Not anyone could do that. You can't teach power, which Big George have, and you can't teach charisma, which he was, which he had an abundance of. He would be greatly missed, but he's a legend. He's immortalized. He's an idol. He would always be remembered for the Rumble in the Jungle, coming up short with Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali, and then of course coming back and becoming one of the oldest heavyweight in boxing history, which I think that record's forever going to stand. I don't think no one becomes a heavyweight champion at 45 or 45 plus years old. So, rest in peace to a great man, and he leaves behind a great legacy.
The charisma that Foreman had was part of his revolution as a person and as a fighter, because he didn't really have that in the late 60s, early 70s. He wasn't that kind of personality. He developed that over time, becoming a pastor and getting back into boxing largely because of weight issues in the 1980s. And it took off from there with slapping his name on that Foreman grill. I mean, outside of Michael Jordan, Sergio, I can't think of an athlete that is as well known for what they did off the court or made more money than what they did off the court than what they did on. Michael Jordan, his legacy beyond basketball is the Jordan brand and the sneakers and all that. George Foreman made good money as a boxer, but he made like something in the neighborhood of $250 million or more selling that Foreman grill. So he really, really accomplished a tremendous amount in his life, and he certainly will be sorely missed. And Sergio, for you, I'm going to show up at our next fight with your very own Foreman grill. Let me buy you a Foreman grill.
What would that be, our next fight together?
I have no idea.
If it's in Mexico, we don't need it because we actually cook great food there, and we don't use no Foreman grills. We use, we use a lot of things to cook. And the Foreman grill is not one of them. But anywhere outside of that, go to any college campus. I'm sure they're still there. And like you said, you have two of them. So maybe one day you can show me how to use it.
The number of hot dogs I cooked on the Foreman grill during my 4 years of college, it would make you sick.
Yeah, I've seen you without a shirt at the pool. I can tell you eat a lot of hot dogs.
Oh, dig at the end. Dig at the end.
Barbara is nervous because her check engine light is on and she's expecting the worst. But she went to AutoZone, where a friendly AutoZoner, Amy, runs a Fix Finder scan. Just one of AutoZone's exclusive free services. She finds the most likely fix and refers her to a local shop. Less stress, more free services.